gotta tell somebody.
This is the best thing I've ever seen.
Let's talk about that.
Listen to this.
Memorable and exciting.
Well, then be less boring.
I'm going to tell everyone. Wait here.
Mighty remarkable, Big Daddy. Remarkable?
Welcome to Remarkable, a podcast for B2B marketers that deconstructs the most iconic moments in film, television, pop culture, and advertising for a single purpose: to give you, the B2B marketer, the same storytelling techniques that the pros use. In each episode, you will learn techniques from Hollywood, Pixar, Marvel, and beyond, from Spielberg's hands to yours, bringing remarkable content ideas to you every single week. I'm Ian Faison, CEO of Caspian Studios. This is Remarkable. This week, we're talking marketing lessons from GoDaddy's Act Like You Know campaign with our guy, Walton Goggins.
Actors, we have the power to convince the world we know what we're doing, when in fact, we do not.
With the help of our special guest, the CMO of G2, Sydney Sloan. Sydney, how are you?
Hi, I am doing fantastic. How are you guys?
Oh, so good. Super excited to dig into our guy, Walton. And this campaign is so fun. And and all about G2 and all the cool stuff that y'all are doing from a content brand marketing perspective, and a little bit of like how we're all facing this, building a brand in the age of AI. But first, tell me, why the heck did you pick GoDaddy's Act Like You Know campaign?
So I think it was, Cannes Lion was going on. And for the first time, I was felt FOMO. I never thought the Cannes Lion was for the normal B2B marketer. And it was just for the creatives. I'd worked at Adobe a long time. So, we always had a huge presence there. And then all of a sudden, I saw people posting and my friend Maria Pergolino wrote an article on the campaign and why it was such a great campaign and inspiring.
I can make you believe I'm a detective without ever stepping foot in an actual crime scene. These symbols probably symbolize something.
And so, I dug in. And first of all, we are all rethinking how we build content that's compelling and that stands out. And so, having something at that high of a level of production, featuring, well, at that point, it wasn't a well-known actor, right? The timing on that one was perfect. We could talk about that. The season 3 of White Lotus had not dropped yet. So, they got to ride the wave of a new old comer. And so the timing of it, and then just the overall creativity was inspiring. So I know we're going to dive deeper. So I'll just, those are my highlights.
Yeah. So it really did. The Cannes thing is so interesting too, because it's sort of a tipping point on multiple fronts for all of this, because the Cannes thing for me too. We put one of our shows, we put Murder in HR, up. We'd never submitted an application before this year. So I was thinking of going, and I had a new baby and it just didn't work out. And then I saw how many people went, and I was like, oh man, I really wish I had gone. This is crazy. I'd never seen, I didn't even know any B2B people went to this ever. And so, yeah, it's just interesting that you saw it sort of.
Yeah. I mean, I think we could thank LinkedIn for that, right? So, LinkedIn did their own separate program and, had a lot of people there talking B2B. And then they did they turned that into their influencer campaign. Every time I go into LinkedIn, there's still content from that with the influencers they had there talking about why they use LinkedIn or whatever lessons they're learning. It was that one and the event they did in New York City. And so, good on them too for leading the way.
Yeah. I wonder if there's another side of this that's all the people who used to go to Cannes and now all these filthy B2B marketers are filling the streets.
Well, I think this might be one of the lessons in here too, Ian, is that, for far too long, B2B has been boring marketing. And if we do want to stand out, we have to think about, what resonates with people, not with companies. The people we're marketing to people. We want users to use our product and get value from it. And so if we stop thinking about, how to the corporate side of it, start thinking about the human side of it and what draws that in. I mean, GoDaddy isn't the only person using well-known actors in their campaigns. I remember driving down the 101 in San Francisco and seeing, Billy Idol in the Rockstar campaign that Emma Shawin is doing over at Workday, and then seeing the ads with Gwen Stefani and I call him Travis Kardashian. I forget his last name. Courtney's husband. And, and Keanu Reeves and Palo Alto Networks. And then of course, Matthew McConaughey being the spokesperson for Salesforce. And so, I think it's a trend for the large companies that they're thinking about using influencers. And so what does that mean for those of us that don't have multi-million-dollar brands? Like, you could still use influencers. You could still have people connecting to people and doing it in creative ways. And, don't be afraid. I have a funny kind of revealing story. There's this awesome prompt that someone posted on LinkedIn to allow GPT to be your coach. And so it's like, how do you become an elite CMO? And so I ran, and it's based on what the GPT knows about you. And that's my platform of choice. So you could use whatever platform is the one that you work on the most. And it's like a harsh coach and critic. And it's like, it said, take an effing bet. You're not swinging hard enough. You're like in your comfort zone and probably outperforming others, but you're not taking big risks. So when I wrote my personal development plan for this year, it's like, take a big swing, like go do something outside of your comfort zone, creative. And I've always kind of been pragmatic and measured and B2B. And so, yeah, it's inspiring.
That's you could go ahead and just put that in every single B2B CMO's, to-do list is to take a freaking bet. And by the way, like, I also want to say it's awesome to see the, celebrity sort of piece there. I also want to say that's not actually a big bet. I also want to say, like, it's a big dollar bet, but is there any brand risk at all to Salesforce to have Matthew McConaughey? Zero brand risk. Zero. It's not going to ruffle any feathers. It's not risky actually at all. The only thing that's risky is that you could have done something else with those dollars, which there is risk there too, that like you could have been more efficient or effective, but like, that's not even risky. And it's more
risky to Matthew McConaughey and his brand, selling out to the B2B. Yeah, exactly. But if it's normalized, if you see these big actors doing it and doing it in creative ways, like maybe we'll see it more. But I do think it speaks to the influencer culture and how that's becoming part of how we have to think about building our brands and amplifying our brands.
Yeah, and I think that ads are ads. I've been on this kick on this show talking about this, and I think it's an important point to bring up here before we dig more into it, is like the reason why ads work so well at like going viral and things like that is because the audience is in on it. They know that this is an ad that's supposed to be selling them something, right? So it's like when we see Walton Goggins, which we'll get into, is like, we know that they're trying to sell us something. Right? So if you can tell a story and entertain them and make them smile and make them laugh, and by the way, you should buy our stuff. Like, the audience gets that. We understand the thing that there are pre-rolls, that this is why we get to watch free content, right? So it's like, that's part of the social construct. So the game is, how clever can you be with 30 seconds, right? And that's the game that we're all playing, right? And I think that people lose that fact, that they don't realize that, and so then they don't take risks, or they try to do something, whatever. But it's like Dove or whoever, they're going to try to make you cry or make you feel an emotion, or go hug your kid, or whatever, or whatever the ad is supposed to make you feel an emotion. And so when you get these B2B sort of the celebrity type thing, it's, our brand is approximate to Matthew McConaughey. We're cool enough that this person, we're going to borrow their cool, and that they are okay with us rubbing off on them, right? And that's part of it. But again, that's zero risk to me, right? Again, it's a big bet, but it's not a risk, and therefore you don't sort of always reap the rewards by just doing that. There has to be another element. And that's what this ad with Walton Goggins did, which is the extra element of this whole thing.
So it reminds me of, and I know we're going to go into deeper, but it reminds me my CRO at G2, his name's Eric Gilpin. And before at G2, he was at Upwork. And before that, he was at Career Builder. And he talks about I don't know if you remember, but they did a Super Bowl campaign years ago with monkeys driving to work. Like a monkey could do it. And it's hilarious, right? And they timed it right. And, and just that I think was risk-taking. Like it wasn't boring B2B back then. It was like Microsoft and people standing on desks like the Office hero, and it was super boring. And like, so, that idea that, like thinking through what is funny, what would people connect with, showing that a monkey can't do it, which is interesting. Now we think AI can do everything. So maybe there's a play in there of, what are humans good at? What are monkeys good at? What is AI good at? But, it was super creative. And again, we're in marketing, right? That's what we do. This is marketing from the start. And so as we are going into this crazy new era, I believe that brand is more important than ever. Because you can't buy it anymore. You can't go buy keywords on Google and drive traffic to your website. We have to go back to the fundamentals of brand building. And so what does that mean? Like, what does your brand stand for? What emotion do you want it to evoke? Who are you building it for? How do you want it to be represented? And so I think we all are, as CMOs, having to take a step back and be like, okay, well, we got to go back and invest in brand. And what does that mean? And how do I do it? Especially in this era where, where is my audience? Where are they living and how do I capture them? And it's not the old playbook. That thing is gone. Like display out the windows, Google search out the window. Like we are all at the starting line together. And, whoever is the most creative and figures out this new, this new era we're in, like has an unfair advantage.
And you are now sitting at the top of that unfair advantage at G2. Just tell us, like, what does it mean to be the CMO of G2?
Well, G2 is the world's largest software marketplace. We want to bring buyers and sellers together to make sure that the voice of the customer is represented. And when we look at, how people research and evaluate and make decisions on software, what their peers think about how the software works, and that feedback is super valuable. And I think we timed it right, as did Reddit and a few other places where, we allowed our user feedback, which the LLMs love, to be indexed by them. And so now when you go, search, like you're still getting answers from real people who've left reviews on these different review platforms or have had conversations on these platforms. And so I love that. I love that, actual users who use the products input is highly valuable as part of the influence process. And, I can continue to see where we go, but, our goal is to be the most trusted brand in the, and data. And because we have the most reviews, because we index the most software and services products, like we're at an advantage.
Yeah. And G2 is the best. So great. It's so great. Like, where would we be? How would we evaluate software without it? Meredith, what the heck is the Act Like You Know campaign? Which, by the way, no offense to anybody, it's really not the best name. Just call it the Goggins Goggles campaign. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, that's what it should be called.
Exactly.
But anyways, go ahead.
So this campaign was actually GoDaddy's first Super Bowl ad in over 8 years. And they really went for like the holy grail spot of the Super Bowl. It aired during the 2-minute warning in the fourth quarter, which apparently cost like maybe, this is just like an estimate, over $8 million. And
it's gotta be. It might be more.
Maybe more. And it would have reached an estimated 127 plus million viewers. And it really marks a brand refresh and a change in the tone behind GoDaddy's ads. So they had been doing like sort of like shock value humor. And this is more like empowering small business owners. This ad, as we mentioned, stars Walton Goggins. I don't know why even his name is almost like a tongue twister for me.
Astronaut? Nope. Houston, I'm observing some debris coming from Uranus.
I swear he's like in every ad right now. I don't know what's going on with that, but It's his moment. So people know him from White Lotus, Fallout, The Righteous Gemstones. And in this ad, he starts by saying, "Actors, we can make you believe we know what we're doing, when in fact, we do not." And the ad shows Goggins in a series of roles where he's acting as a detective, an astronaut, a race car driver. And the funny part is like he's messing up everything basically in these ads. And then he says,
On my hardest role yet, small business owner. Because I have no idea what I'm doing.
and it shows him building his own website, creating a logo, social content using GoDaddy Arrow, which is GoDaddy's AI-equipped platform.
But GoDaddy Arrow does, using AI to build a logo, website, and social content. So I can start Walton Goggins goggle glasses. Because if your goggles ain't Goggins, they don't belong on your noggins. With GoDaddy Arrow, it's like you know what you're doing.
And what I thought was interesting was the small business that he's shown making all this content for is actually a real brand that he made. And it's Walton Goggins Goggle Glasses, which he did build with GoDaddy Arrow. And these are sort of like 80s ski inspired sunglasses. They look a lot like Pit Viper glasses, those sort of like hot kind of, I don't know, racy looking glasses. And I looked them up. They retail for like $150. And if you have spare time, the copy written for each pair is pretty funny too. Anyway, GoDaddy, the CMO, Farrah Howard, said that their goal was to play towards this core emotional insight that small business owners really felt that they had to fake it till they made it. But their message is that they could seem like they always knew what they were doing from the start with GoDaddy Arrow, right? The campaign was a collaboration between GoDaddy's in-house creative team and this Chicago-based agency called Quality Meats, MEATS. I was like, what? That's a
great name.
Great name. Chicago. And it was directed by Ian Pons-Jewell. And this is just like the 30-second ad, right? But what's interesting is that GoDaddy also rolled out a bunch of additional related content across social media, TV, influencer channels, YouTube, and more. And they created this actual like year-round creative platform, which I thought was really cool. And then, Sydney, as you mentioned, this ad won the Cannes Lion 2025 Grand Prix in Creative B2B. It more than doubled GoDaddy's web traffic. It added $1.6 billion to GoDaddy's market cap. It got 150 million impressions on social and more. So this thing like blew up. But Sydney, I'm wondering like when you first saw this ad, what your first impression was of it?
Well, I had just started watching. I was a late entrant to the White Lotus, and I had to catch up to season 3. So I'd only seen one episode. So I kind of knew who he was. I don't know if I would have paid attention, and I was watching the Super Bowl until Maria had like highlighted it. And so it's like, you know, in my network, it's like something highlights. You're like, oh, I should check that out. And so, you know, I love that. I love the idea of like doing, you know, also they did the long form content too, right? And then created short versions of it. And that allows you to tell a story, like a really, you know, like a brand story that goes further. And now we know what it's called, like Act Like You Know. So thank you, Meredith, for the better description, right? But, you know, I thought that it was funny. It was colorful. It was, you know, when you think about the timing of it, you know, I always like to take an opportunity to latch on to a momentum that's bigger than the company I represent, right? Like that you get that extra wind in your sails. And so when you're able to like take that and like, thank goodness they, you know, it was like what we knew White Lotus was be a hit, but we didn't know if people would like really akin to his acting. Like he's kind of a, you know, on the show, he's not the nicest person, but for some reason we all kind of like, you know, liked him. And so I think too, you know, it shows like another side of the actor, right? Because it is his real business. And so it's that's a two for sure too, right? Like he's the actor for GoDaddy, but now look at the success of his business. So we were talking earlier about what's in it for them. Well, gosh, for Walton, there was like talk about, you know, free branding for his new product. So it was a super win for him too, to be featured. So I think that's just smart.
Not to toot my own horn as a tastemaker here in front of our audience, but do you know who approached Walton Goggins 2.5 years ago about being in one of his podcasts?
Did you really?
Ian Faison?
Yeah.
And were you on it?
he couldn't do it. He wanted to do it, but he couldn't do it because he was filming White Lotus.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I
And now he's
know
going to be
that.
too big.
I know, price just went up. Yeah. I was like, oh, this guy's amazing. And he's like on the rise and like, we should try to capitalize. And the team was super excited. Yeah, he was going to be in one of our shows. But, alas, shout out to Walden. You're the best. I mean, like, again, like, that's the sort of thing that, why this ad was a great bet is like, Walden Goggins isn't Tom Cruise. And so you don't need to pay like you would for Tom Cruise. Like you can like not that we're not trying to make these sweeping comparisons to the McConaughey Salesforce ads to this, but McConaughey is much more established, much more expensive, much more McConaughey. He's the spokesperson for a bunch of other stuff. He'd been in those at like not Mitsubishi.
Oh, the Lincoln.
Lincoln.
Yeah, yeah.
But the polar opposite of the cars, his Lincoln ads, stuff like that, right? Yeah, and like whereas like what GoDaddy did, which is sort of like find this person who's on this like sort of very, very large trajectory, super beloved person in every single role he's ever been in, been around forever, been in some like really good shows like Justified and stuff like that have cult followings. And is starting to get, very similar to Pedro Pascal and sort of similarly meteoric rise. And they took a bet on that. And that's like a really smart, sort of idea.
Well, he's also like, think about it, if you're marketing to small business, and I remember doing some advisory work for Bill.com, and we were like looking at lift campaigns and like, you're trying to appeal to the small business owner. You want to be the everyman or the every woman, right? That appeals to that audience. So when you think about GoDaddy's audiences, like, somebody who's gritty, not quite together, or not overly polished, like if they can do it, I can do it kind of maybe feeling based on his public personas and the kind of, the roles that he's been are not like, I'm Brad Pitt and I can fly airplanes and I'm super buffed and, I'm take the A-list, partner. And so, he's approachable. So maybe as you're thinking about, the kinds of people that you want to align to your brand, that is part of the whole equation. I don't want to take us off task, but I cannot not also mention the most timeliest of like smart brand moves with Gwyneth Paltrow. Did you guys see that this weekend?
Oh, yeah, totally.
I mean, talk about a risk-taking, bold move that was just brilliant. I mean, brilliant, right? And so like just that is another perfect example of like using the right character at the right time with massive like, whoever figured that one out to turn around something that was like, detrimental to the brand, the company's brand, and to really like put it straight back, push it straight back across the table, like just brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, and like I think that like a move like what they did with Walden Goggins and definitely like the, Gwyneth Paltrow thing backs up against the wall. You hear this all the time when you talk to startup founders that the ideas that escape are when their backs are against the walls, right? It's like, I had no other choices. Whatever. And I think that what's interesting is, I mean, GoDaddy's been around for a long time. And that does not guarantee that they're going to be around for a long time. Like you have to fight to stay relevant every single day, especially in this sort of like new age of AI and competitors coming out of every which direction. And I think that like some of that desperation, and again, I don't know if this is a desperate campaign or not, but like to me, it's definitely something that, they hadn't done a Super Bowl ad in 8 years. And truly, have you thought of GoDaddy in 8 years, right?
No, but as the timing is relevant too, right? Now as Google's, we're like, I don't know if I'm going to Google it anymore, and security is of concern, and what do the big players know? I mean, GoDaddy's, that's also always been part of their offering of, we take a different stance than the major players, and we make it easy, but we make it secure. We do all these other things. And so, maybe there's something there too. And so what I didn't do, and I should have, was go back and like do a little bit more research on like what is GoDaddy's like, brand promise, tagline, and how do those things all kind of come together as well? Because I'm sure it's part of that too. Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, I think one of the things that I think is really interesting about this is, GoDaddy has their brand, they had like the GoDaddy girls and they had the race car stuff and they had all that stuff like way back in the day.
Danica Patrick.
Is still so memorable that we all, Danica Patrick, we all remember that. Yeah. That's how like good of advertising that was. Say what you will about, whatever, is memorable, right? It was remarkable, right? And so to pivot to say, 8 years later, they haven't done and that they were the huge, bold Super Bowl ads, right? Back then. To say we haven't done something in 8 years. I mean, that's an incredibly long time, right? That's like, what is that? Like, what were we 8 years ago? Like iPhone 3 or something? I don't even know. Like, this is a long time, right? And for them to say, to go back to saying, hey, we're a brand that is bold, right? Like that's a big commitment on their part, right? And they have this new product, Arrow, which is not just domains. It's also about, all this other, these AI features and being able to do it all. So I think that's like very commendable that they did that. And then they went fully all in. They did the Super Bowl ad at the super important time. They clearly helped Walton Goggins build this out. I mean, this is a bit, right? It's a gimmick. Like he didn't like, I mean, I have no idea who thought of Goggins goggles, like, but clearly like this is a bit that they're actually selling these and they're real goggles, but like it is, like a joke as well. And it's hilarious, but the fact that you can actually buy them and you can go to the website and it says built with GoDaddy Arrow, try to GoDaddy.com at the top of that website. Like how much traffic do you think his webpage has gotten? I mean, there's tons of people wearing the goggles. There's posts on Reddit about it. Like, are these good? Are they fashionable? Are they not? I couldn't pull these off. Like, oh, they're pretty good for skiing, but like it's more good for just wearing around. Like, again, it's all
strapped on.
It's all like interconnected. Yeah. I mean, this is like a very well thought out, like, large scale sort of campaign. They now have a spokesperson for this thing, but it's not just like, oh, buy our stuff. It's like, I used it to do this and built a real website and built a real product. Right. And like marketing, to your point, marketing to SMBs is so hard. I think it's the hardest demographic by far, which is like all of the demographics, the majority of businesses. But like, that's why it's so hard, right? Because you can't segment it, right? Like marketing to SMBs and marketing to B2B is like completely different. And by the way, they should be separate categories for all these B2B awards. I just also want that to be said, like what GoDaddy's doing for SMBs and like Salesforce is doing for SMBs versus like what someone is doing for enterprise, totally different marketing. But anyways,
I was going to add in, so I really quickly went and looked up the CMO of GoDaddy because I was curious, like it hadn't done for 8 years, like did they get a new CMO and therefore, this was their stamp? And no, she's been there. So Farrah Howard is the CMO of GoDaddy and she has been there for the last 6.5 years and came from Amazon Fashion. So she was the CMO of Amazon Fashion for a little while. And before that had been the VP of Global Marketing at Vans. So very interesting background to come from, that's consumer, right? Like consumer and fashion and then into GoDaddy. So she probably, like just thinking of like, those types of CMOs obviously lean heavy on brand and have, like a vision of how to capture audience attention and creativity. And so just, I don't know, as we think about like the future, like, and the kinds of people you hire, and can a B2B marketer jump over to B2C and come back, or do we start to exchange different agencies and different tactics? Because guess what? The platforms we're going to kind of are like merging. Like B2B is trying to like stand out on TikTok, and B2C is, geez, I got a real estate ad in my LinkedIn feed. Like what's going on there, right? That wasn't B2B. And so, we're figuring out where you can still target humans and where they're living and how you capture their attention. And we have to compete against B2C creative in order to capture attention. That's right.
Like the copy on this stuff is so good. Not goggles, not glasses, goggle glasses.
Very Goggins.
It's so good. It's so silly. And the fact that they're doing it like completely straight laced is also fantastic. It's just so good. Also, the website, I gotta say, if you go to gogginsgoggles.com, is like the most basic ever website. It's like they did not, this is a like made in with GoDaddy Arrow. You know what I mean? Like this is not like, this is super simple. You could probably make this website in 20 minutes. This isn't an ad. We're not getting paid for this, but you definitely could.
I want to know. Did he have the idea before they had the campaign, or did the goggles come as part of the campaign idea?
I don't know. I mean, he's such a cool, creative dude. And you listen to him in interviews, he's so good. The other thing is he's also just such a chameleon in his actual roles too. I think that's part of the thing. Like the difference between his role in Fallout and Baby Billy and in Righteous Gemstones and Justified and all that sort of stuff. Like he has so much range there that I think that's why like the ad campaign like really fits, it like really works. But like it doesn't work if they don't create Goggins goggles. Like that's the thing. Like you have to go all the way. Like there's no traffic on the extra mile. You have to go all the way. You have to actually make it. Because otherwise you're just like making shit up, which is fine. But like you got to make the actual they have suppliers, they have manufacturers, they have like, this is a real business that he's running. And he has no idea how to do it. And like, I guarantee you that they helped him with that. Like that is really cool.
I wish I'm trying to find out if it is funny because when Meredith and I were doing our pre-call prep, I was talking to GPT and she was writing and GPT thought they weren't real. Like, so my research, my GPT said, and the funny thing is it's actually, they're not even real. They're made up. So obviously she hallucinated because Meredith, and then I'm looking at Meredith is taking her notes and I'm on the website and I'm like, whoa, wait, so thankfully I didn't come on and go, they're not even real. But I would have had Meredith not done her fact checking properly. And so I'm in there on their website right now doing background contacts, looking at FAQs and it doesn't say, but the timing is just so serendipitous that he would have a product, they would have a campaign. And again, like the value that he got, the free brand marketing that he got by being the spokesperson for GoDaddy and having this be so wildly successful is like, that's, that you can't bank on.
I do have an answer for you about whether he's been thinking about it or not. So he had the idea before the campaign. He'd been developing the concept for some time. He told Rolling Stone, I can get you a quote here. He told Rolling Stone the February before that, during a ski day in Hudson Valley, he was inspired to create a pair of ski goggles that he could wear all the time. The result is a hybrid between sunglasses and goggles that looks like what might happen if a pair of pit vipers and Ombras had a love child. I don't know how to say that brand name. But so he did think of it beforehand. Okay. Which is interesting. Just sounds serendipitous.
Yeah. There you go. So he had the idea and then when he got to the campaign, they went ahead and produced it.
Yeah.
Perfect.
No, let's do the whole thing. Like, isn't this just like 1 + 1 + 1 = 10?
Yes.
Like
100.
This is the power of marketing. Like this is like why I get so excited about marketing is like your campaign, not you, Sydney, but the royal you that's sitting there and saying, how do I talk about our features and benefits? That you could bring in a celebrity, help them build the business of their dreams, promote that and how your product helps them do that. And that's a way better version than saying buy our stuff.
Well, I mean, I think that's always been the idea of customer centricity and telling the story of your customer and starting like, the day in the life and that versus, and what Apple did so well, they never marketed a product, they marketed a feeling and a style. And, so we have to continue to like push back and like, don't lead with product, lead with solution, or don't lead with product, lead with customer impact. And I love the angle too of partners. So, we're in the middle of doing what we're calling our AI in Action Roadshow. So G2 is hosting it, but it was really important for me to make sure that we did it alongside our partners because G2 alone does not create the entire solution. You have to think about the entire customer experience and brand experience. And so we partnered with a company called New Breed, who's one of HubSpot's biggest partners, Clay, which is a hot data platform, 6 Sense, and Qualified, kind of the leaders from each of these areas. And we started with how do you, what is changing? And then how do you build this? We basically gave them a blank blueprint on the table and said, by the end, we're going to redesign the way that we build our marketing engines. And so the teams put a ton of time and effort into getting our stories to really flow and to think through. And then we were teaching them how to prompt and provided certain and we seated people who was novice, who was intermediate, who was expert. And so we put people at the same tables and let's just roll up our sleeves and get dirty. And, and from that, the amplification, because we focused on our customers and teaching them a new way and why they needed to change the way that they're thinking, the results of that when people left were, on their socials. They're I just spent a half a day. It wasn't enough. I wish it would have been longer. And, and so we've got that extra amplification, and every single city is sold out so far. And so I think, how you focus in on the customer, the challenge they're facing, and if you truly help them, not just with what your product does, but truly help all of the things that they're trying to solve, is part of the relationship that your company or your brand can build with your user. And so you have to think holistically, right?
Yeah. I think that the idea that your marketing budget could do something different than just be ads is pretty freeing. You're oh, I could help, a very famous person sell their dream of making goggle glasses hybrids. That's a pun with their name.
Or small businesses achieve their business dreams, right? And he's the poster child. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it doesn't feel like it just feels a lot more, developed. I think the other thing too here is there's all the talk about sort of creating AI ads. Nothing against that. There's tons of great AI ads and using AI in the creative process and all that stuff to build better ads and multivariate testing, all that stuff. However, star power, very real. Still very, very, very real. Probably will be real until the end of time. People like the hot thing. They also like hot people, but they like the hot thing. They like cool people. They like people that they identify with. And they like that they're people, right? I think people are I'm a huge fan of Walton Goggins. I've watched a bunch of his shows. He's given me a lot of happiness. I'm cool buying his merchandise, right? So there is this thing of I think that, trying to say oh, if you had done this with an AI actor, it wouldn't work. Would never work. No. You'd have to completely rethink how you're going to do the entire ad, right? And I just think that that's an important piece to remember that, part of this is the human centricity of it all makes it work.
I agree.
Yeah. Anything else on that? The one thing I would love for you to share is just sort of, you did this post about how important, building your brand moat is in the age of AI. And just what are your thoughts on brand right now, as of halfway through 2025?
Well, I touched on it earlier. I think, brand is going to be more important than ever because it's going to be harder to buy our way to the click. And so the way that, how do you make sure you're on the short list is by people talking about you, people referencing you showing up where they are and connecting with them in an emotional way. I mean, that's what brand is, right? It's the emotional connection that you actually build between a brand, which is not a person, right? Unless they're an actor, I guess, but and the audience. And so, I think that many of us have to rethink that. And it's actually our second half campaign is for brand builders. How do you build your brand in the AI era? And what do you need to do differently? And we're just working on that content now. And, it's being bold and creative. you have to take some risks. You have to understand what is the emotional connection. For us, it's trust. But we think we could be a little bit more humorous. Like we're kind of buttoned up. And so it's like, where do we want to take the risks in having fun and humor, but still being trustworthy? And so there is invulnerable humor, right? Trust can be built. And so what does that mean for us and the tone that we want to take that our AI will use and all the content that it creates and helps us stay on brand for that. And then we do believe that there's this, we did some testing with some like major influencers now that we're looking at like micro influencers, what role can customers play in that and amplifying the brand. So we're in the midst of the fun part of marketing, which is being creative and if money were no object, what would we want to do and how would we do it part? And so like the next couple of weeks, that's what we're doing. And I think the thing is that, which I'm really excited about, like there is a thread between the brand and then what new capabilities we're building in our product to deliver on that. Like we're making it easier for people to capture voice of the customer because we do AI voice reviews, right? Now you can just talk to somebody and that's how you build your brand is through the voice of the customer and using AI. And we're just making it easier. And then we're also making it easier to amplify your brand because we syndicate all those reviews to all these different websites like Amazon and Azure and Ramp. And that's what influences the LLMs. That's the new formula. You got to have your peer review game. You've got to have your Reddit game. You've got to understand what is influencing the LLMs and feed that. And there's a very tactical recommendation that I can't take credit for. Well, actually, this guy Guillaume G, he goes by, and I were doing a session together, and we talked about understanding your user and we call them personas, right? Like in boring, so our personas are your users. And we said, well, what if you treat GPT as a user? Like make that a persona. How do you market to it? How do you inform it? What would I do differently? And so like now a couple of people are trying that. And again, like I think we're just going to have to experiment in this time to like really figure out what's going to work. And like, so we do know that voice of the customer works. We do know and that it can be tracked now and traced. So there's tools out there called generative engine optimization platforms. Some people are calling it AIO, but that's the category we're calling it, that can now track how, where, and when your brand shows up in LLMs and what's influencing that. So you have more visibility into what you should continue to do or if you're not yet doing it, what you should do in order to influence them. So fun stuff.
Yeah. And it is super fun stuff. And we're super excited to follow along with G2. We're always on G2.com because that's how we look at software. This is our second person from G2. Shout out to Palmer, who talked Mad Men with us. And so now between Mad Men and Goggins Goggles, I feel like you all choose the best marketing to talk about. And it's just wonderful having you on the show, Sydney. Thanks so much. Yeah, for listeners, go check out G2.com. Sydney, any final thoughts? Anything to plug?
Be bold. Just challenge everybody to be bold. Don't go safe. Take risks. Go have fun. Like do that. Let's have fun. It's too hard these days, right? Like everything's gotten harder, and like let's make sure we've got fun in the equation. Yeah.
This podcast is not goggles. It's not glasses. It's goggle glasses. Thanks so much, Sydney. We'll talk soon. Well, that's it for today. I hope you got some good ideas for your B2B content. Thank you for listening to Remarkable. I'm Ian Faison, CEO of Caspian Studios. Remarkable is created by the team at Caspian Studios, B2B podcast as a service. Caspian also creates fiction series for B2B companies, so if you want a business thriller, you can learn more at caspianstudios.com. Hollywood-style storytelling for B2B. And in today's episode, you heard from myself, Ian Faison, and Meredith O'Neill, senior producer here at Caspian Studios. Remarkable was produced this week by Meredith O'Neill, mixed by Scott Goodrich, and our theme song is Solomon by Falak. Be remarkable and rise above the noise.